Let me tell you something real. Most people give up too early. They stop digging just before they strike gold. They walk away just before the tide turns. I've seen it. I've been rejected, doubted, underestimated, but I didn't quit. And that's the difference. It's not about talent alone. It's not about luck. It's about staying in the fight long enough to see the reward. You've got to have faith. You've got to have discipline. And most of all, you've got to believe in your purpose, even when nobody else does. That's why most people don't win, because they leave the race before they cross the finish line. The success isn't something that just shows up because you want it. It's not some magical reward that lands in your lap the moment you decide you want to be great. It takes time. It takes years. It takes grinding in silence when no one's watching. And most people, they can't handle that. They want the results now. They want the lights, the applause, the money, the validation. But they don't want to wait. They don't want to work without reward. They don't want to be faithful when no one's clapping for them. But see, that's where the real test is. That's what separates the few who win from the many who quit. I know this not because I read it somewhere. I know it because I lived it. When I first started, nobody believed in me. I wasn't walking into rooms and getting standing ovations. I wasn't the man in the spotlight. I was just another face in a room full of hungry dreamers. I was broke. I was confused. I was scared. I auditioned over and over again and got told no, more times than I could count. I would go home wondering if this was ever going to work, wondering if maybe I was just wasting my time. But something inside me kept saying, don't stop. Not because I saw the result, but because I felt the calling. And let me tell you, most people quit right there, right at that point where you're not seeing the fruit, but you're doing the work. That's the moment most people walk away, because they think nothing is happening. But something is always happening, even when you can't see it. Something is happening in you. You're being prepared. You're being molded. The struggle is shaping you into the blessing. Need to be for the blessing you're about to receive. Time doesn't lie. You can't cheat time. You have to earn every step. You have to outlast the voice in your head that says it's not working. You have to keep going when everything around you is silent. That's what I did. I kept showing up. I kept reading scripts. I kept working on my craft when nobody was watching. I showed up to auditions knowing they might laugh at me, knowing they might not see what I saw in myself. But I showed up anyway. And every single time I didn't quit. That was a small victory. Most people don't get that far. They think the game is only about talent. It's not. It's about stamina. Can you outlast the pain? Can you outlast the silence? Can you outlast the loneliness? Because that's what it takes. People see the movies now. They see the speeches. They see the suits and the cameras. But they didn't see the years I spent wondering if I was crazy for dreaming this big. They didn't see the sacrifices. They didn't see the doors that closed, the people who turned their backs, the moments I was this close to giving up. But I didn't. And that's the message. That's the reason I speak. Because there's somebody out there right now who's thinking about quitting. Someone who thinks the dream is too far away. I want to tell that person, don't stop. Don't you dare stop. Because you might be one no away from your yes. One more hour of effort away from the door opening. One more day of faith away from your whole life changing. Time is the separator. Time will always show who really wants it. Most people give up because the waiting is uncomfortable. Because they think it's meant for them. It should be easy. But easy doesn't build character. Easy doesn't create greatness. I had to become the man worthy of the blessings I was praying for, and that took time. So don't rush the process. Respect it. Walk through and from it. You might not win today. You might not win this year. But if you don't quit, if you keep walking, keep pushing, keep the time will come. Just make sure you're still standing when it does. Pain is part of the journey. I've felt it. I've lived it. And I know what it's like to wonder if the pain is a sign to stop, to quit, to walk away. But let me tell you the truth. Pain is not a stop sign. It's a signal that you're alive. It's a test. And for those of us who've dared to dream big, pain is not the enemy. It's the process. When I started chasing this dream, I didn't know what I was really signing up for. I thought talent would be enough. I thought if I worked hard, doors would open. But life had other plans. Rejection became routine. I'd go into an audition room and give it everything I had, only to hear, "We're going in a different direction," again and again. You start to doubt yourself. You start to ask, is this even worth it? And that's where most people quit. Not because they weren't good enough, but because the pain of not being seen, not being chosen, was too heavy to carry. But I kept carrying it. I didn't run from it. I used it. See, what pain does is sharpen you. It cuts away your ego. It removes the fluff. It makes you real. When everything is easy, you don't learn who you are. You learn that when you're down to nothing, and you still decide to get up. You learn that when the applause is gone, and the stage is empty, and yet you keep rehearsing. That's when you meet yourself. That's when you find out what you're made of. I found that out not on red carpets, but in those quiet moments when nobody believed in me but me. I remember the nights, tired, broke, wondering how I'd keep going. I didn't have answers, but I had faith. Not just faith in God, but faith that this pain had a purpose. That if I didn't let it break me, it would build me. And it did. It built character. It built resilience. It built a man who could handle the weight of his calling. People see the wins now, the awards, the roles, the speeches, but they don't see the struggle. They don't see the nights I cried, the times I was angry, confused, exhausted. That's the part that's not glamorous, but that's the part that makes you great. Because once you understand that pain is part of your preparation, you stop fearing it. You stop avoiding it. You start growing through it. Most people let pain be the reason they stop. I let it be the reason I kept going. There's something powerful about walking through the fire and not getting burned. Not because the fire didn't touch you, but because it refined you. It made you stronger. And that's what I want people to understand. Every no, every failure, every disappointment, it wasn't the end. It was the middle. It was the shaping. I wasn't losing. I was learning. I wasn't failing. I was being formed. But only because I didn't give up. It's not just about talent. It's not just about dreams. It's about your threshold for pain. Can you take the hits and keep standing? Can you be overlooked and not grow bitter? Can you be hurt and still show up with love and fire in your eyes? That's what separates the few who win from the many who quit. And trust me, there were moments when I almost quit. Moments when it felt like nobody saw me. But even in those moments, I realized I had to see me. I had to believe before the world believed. Because quitting wouldn't make the pain go away. It would just make it meaningless. So I embraced it. I let pain teach me. Drive me. I let it push me deeper into my purpose. And when the time came, when the light finally broke through, I was ready. I didn't win by avoiding pain. I won by walking through it. And that's why I'm still standing. That's why I'm still here. Because I didn't quit when it hurt. I kept going. And that's the difference. That's what makes the pain worth it. You have to believe before you achieve. That's the truth a lot of people don't understand. And that's why most of them quit before they win. I've lived this. I've walked that road where nobody clapped, where nobody cheered, where nobody believed. Not even the people closest to me. But you know what? I still had to believe in myself. I had to see something in me that wasn't visible yet to the outside world. I had to carry a vision so real in my heart that even when everything around me said, "You're not good enough," I had to say, "Just wait." Because belief, true belief, isn't about what you see, it's about what you know deep down is possible if you don't give up. People ask me all the time, "How did you keep going when doors kept closing?" I tell them, the belief came before the results. You see, when I was standing in line at auditions, waiting for hours, watching people walk in and out getting roles while I walked away empty-handed, I didn't quit because I had already made a decision, long before that rejection, that I was going to succeed. And once you've made that decision, once you've seen that image of who you're supposed to become, quitting isn't an option. I had nights where I questioned everything, nights where I was broke, nights where I heard no over and over again, and it echoed in my soul. But I held on to that belief, not because things looked good, but because faith told me it would be. See, most people are looking for signs. They're waiting for the applause before they believe. They're waiting for the check to come in, the spotlight to shine, the opportunity to fall in their lap before they start moving. But that's not how it works. The world doesn't believe in you until you show it why it should. That belief has to come first. When I was growing up, when I started chasing acting, I didn't know how it would work out. I didn't have the map. But I had the compass, and that compass was my belief, pointing me north every time I got lost. I remember sitting in rooms where I didn't feel like I belonged. I remember hearing voices tell me I was too rough, too raw, too different. And you start to wonder, are they right? Maybe I'm not made for this. Maybe I should just stop. But something in me, something stronger than all those doubts, kept whispering, keep going. I chose to believe that whisper, not the noise. And belief is the reason I'm still standing. It was never about knowing how. It was about knowing why I started, why I couldn't stop, why this mattered to me more than anything. Belief doesn't mean the fear goes away. I still had fear. I still had moments where I wanted to turn around. But belief gives you something fear can't touch. It gives you direction. It gives you strength in the dark. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying I always felt strong. But even when I was weak, my belief carried me forward. I believed that the pain had a purpose. I believed that if I stayed the course, something powerful would come out of it. And it did. You don't get to the top by accident. You get there by showing up day after day when nothing makes sense, when your bank account is empty, when people laugh behind your back, when nobody's watching. You get there by believing even when you don't feel like it. That's the difference. That's the gap between those who quit and those who win. The quitters are waiting for signs. The winners create them with their actions. I'm not special. I just didn't quit. I just kept believing. And every time I got knocked down, I got back up because that belief in my heart wouldn't die. That's what you need. That's the fire. When everything else fails, talent, luck, timing, belief will carry you. But it has to be yours. No one can give it to you. You have to choose it every single day. And if you do, if you truly believe, before the money, before the fame, before the breakthrough, then one day, I promise you, the world will believe too. I didn't always feel motivated. People look at the success now, the movies, the awards, the speeches. But they don't see the days where I woke up tired, uncertain, discouraged. They don't see the times I questioned if I was even on the right path. I've had days where I felt like Nothing was moving, like I was stuck in the same place while the world moved on without me. That's when I learned something crucial. Motivation doesn't last. It comes and goes. It's like a spark. It might light a fire, but it won't keep it burning. What keeps the fire going is discipline. And that's what separates those who talk about dreams and those who live them. When I was younger, I used to think that if I just got motivated enough, I'd be able to push through anything. I thought if I got inspired enough, I could conquer the world. But the truth is, there were many mornings I woke up and didn't feel inspired at all. Nothing magical happened. No lightning bolt struck. No voice from the sky told me, today is the day. I just had to get up and do the work. And that's what I did. I learned to show up even when I didn't feel like it. I learned to be consistent, even when no one was watching. I wasn't chasing a moment of hype. I was building a habit. The habit became my armor. Discipline is doing it when it's hard. Discipline is doing it when nobody claps for you. Discipline is showing up when no results are invisible. People think winners have some secret formula. They think there's some magic in success, but the magic is in the boring stuff. The repetition, the practice, the quiet hours when you're training while others are sleeping or out partying. I didn't book every audition. In fact, I failed more times than I can count. I heard a lot of no, but each time I showed back up, each time I told myself, this isn't the end. And that's discipline. Not just wanting it, but committing to it. Not just dreaming about it, but working for it when nobody's paying attention. There were times when I doubted myself, no question. But I didn't let doubt become the driver. I let discipline lead. Because I knew something deep down, if I just stayed in the fight, if I kept showing up, eventually the door would open. And it did. Not all at once. Not with a standing ovation. But piece by piece, opportunity by opportunity, it started to come together. The people you admire, the people you see winning, they weren't always winning. They were just disciplined enough not to quit. They were just strong enough to keep showing up when everything inside them said stop. I remember walking the streets of New York, broke, auditioning, getting passed over, wondering if this was a waste of time. And in those moments, I could have walked away. A lot of people did. I saw talent walk away. I saw brilliant minds give up because they couldn't take the grind. But I stayed. Not because I was stronger or smarter, but because I decided to stay committed no matter how I felt. And that's the decision you have to make if you want to win. It's not about waiting for motivation to strike. It's about building something so solid, so rooted in discipline, that nothing shakes you. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be the most talented. But you do need to be disciplined. You do need to take that first step. Then take the next one, even when the road ahead looks foggy. I didn't see the whole picture when I started. I just trusted that if I kept doing my part, the picture would eventually reveal itself. And it did, but only because I stayed in it long enough to see it. That's what I want people to understand. If you're waiting to feel like it, you'll be waiting a long time. If you're relying on motivation to carry you, you'll burn out. But if you train yourself to keep going no matter what, if you build that muscle of discipline, there's nothing you can't achieve. I'm not standing here today because I always felt good. I'm standing here because I kept going when I didn't. That's the truth. That's how you win. If I had quit, none of this would make sense. You see me now on stages in films, receiving awards, inspiring millions. But you didn't see the nights I sat alone, wondering if I had what it took. You didn't see the rejection letters, the roles I didn't get, the people who told me I wasn't enough. And they said it in different ways, sometimes with a look, sometimes with silence, sometimes with laughter. But they said it, and there were moments, real moments, when I started to believe them. Moments where quitting seemed like the smart choice. But I didn't. I kept going. And now when I look back, every setback, every no, every closed door, it all makes sense. It had to happen that way. Because if I had quit, I would have robbed myself of the meaning behind the struggle. When you're in it, when you're walking through the valley, nothing makes sense. You ask yourself why. Why now? Why does it have to be so hard? But the truth is, if it were easy, you wouldn't grow. You wouldn't become who you're meant to be. The hard parts shape you. They refine you. I know now that my story was never just about acting. It was about learning who I really was. And I wouldn't have known that if I had stopped when it got hard. You see, the story only becomes powerful when you endure. That's the secret. That's the piece most people miss. Everybody wants the glory, but few are willing to carry the weight. They want the testimony without the test. But it doesn't work like that. If you quit, your story ends in pain. If you keep going, the pain becomes your power. And that's what I learned. Every struggle I went through wasn't just a challenge, it was a chapter. It belonged in the book. It had a purpose. But I had to keep turning the pages. I had to stay in it long enough to see how it all connected. There were days I doubted myself. There were times I watched others succeed and wondered if something was wrong with me. I saw friends make it before me, get roles I wanted, live the life I dreamed about. I could have become bitter. I could have let jealousy eat away at me. But I chose to focus on my lane. I chose to trust that what was for me would find me. But only if I kept showing up. Not sometimes, not when I felt good. Every day. Even when it hurt. Even when the silence in the room after an audition screamed louder than words. I kept going. And eventually, things started to change. Not overnight. Not all at once. But they changed. Because I didn't quit. I gave the process time to work. I gave my faith room to move. And now, when people ask me how I did it, I tell them the truth. I didn't have a secret formula. I had consistency. I had faith. I had pain. But I turned it into power. And most importantly, I stayed. I stayed long enough for the story to make sense. That's what I want people to hear. That's what I want you to know. Quitting doesn't make the struggle go away. It just makes it meaningless. But if you stay in it, if you keep pushing, even when it looks hopeless, that's when the breakthrough comes. That's when all the pieces come together. That's when you understand why it had to be so hard. Your story only makes sense when you keep going. So don't quit. Not now. Not when you're this close. Not when your future self is waiting on the other side of this moment. You owe it to yourself to find out what's possible. You owe it to your pain to give it purpose. You owe it to the struggle to see it through the victory. Keep going. That's the only way your story will ever make sense.